Well, it's Monday morning. Um, 2 weeks since Leah has passed away, and it has felt like an eternity. And I'm sure some are getting sick of seeing the posts on social media of her and our memories and what I miss. Um, but that has helped me get through this and grieve a lot. So I guess the only thing I can say in the nice way of putting it is if you're tired of seeing it or whatever, just skip over it or don't go on my pages. Um, because this is the only way that I know how to deal with this. Uh, she was a very big part of my life. I know that, hey, hi, Bubby, good morning. And I think that is another reason that I'm having a little bit harder of a time getting through this, is because Levi is so lost without her. Animals are resilient and he's doing better. But the moments when I, have to run to the store or I'm outside trying to do a couple things in the yard, or basically whenever I'm not sitting right here with him, he's lost. You can tell he's lost because normally, he'd be playing with her, grooming her, or they're doing something together. And he'll just go over and sit on the little chair in front of the cage. You can see it over there. And just look out for me. Some people have asked, why don't you just let him run in the house with you? Well, we're still working on our house. We still have things around. So I'm not, when I'm busy and my mind is doing something else, I'm not going to just let him, ooh, that was cold, just run around the house and get into anything that could possibly hurt him or he might want to put in his mouth or whatever. Once everything is done and things are where they are, it's set up so that he will be able to have free roam when we're here, just, like he did before on Olive Circle, our other place that we lived in. We haven't exactly had a very smooth couple years thanks to the nightmare with FWC. These guys have only been here, at the new place since it'll be a year in March. For 2.5 years, they were separated at the old place, and ever since all that started, life has just been one living hell after another. The only reason that I've gotten through any of this is because God has been right there, either holding my hand or carrying me through this. And losing Leah was just, I don't even know how to put that to words. She was just very special and different. She's not the first animal and the first monkey that we've lost. Many of you knew about Isaac, which is a whole other ball game. He has his own Facebook page. He was just, he was born with a lot of issues. So his loss, like I said in the other video, was very hard, but he was sick a lot of the time of his life, as far as just like, we never knew what to expect. It wasn't like he was suffering the whole time, but he just had very compromised, organs and things going on. So it was day by day with him. And then it finally got to the point where we had to make the decision because everything was starting to shut down. His liver, just everything. And we ended up having to put him down. And I'm still not over that. And it's been 10 years. And it's hard. Leah was a whole different thing. Leah, even different from Levi. I mean, Levi loves me. We've had an issue, which eventually we're gonna talk about that, because a lot of people hide some of these issues and bites and things like that they go through with monkeys because they're afraid to share. And then the problem is they think that they're the only ones, and then they end up getting rid of their animals because of it, when a lot of times they can work through it. But that's another whole thing. But anyway, Levi and I went through some things. He's pretty much a daddy's boy, even though since the day he was 4 weeks old, I've pretty much been the one that when he wore diapers, did the diapering and the cage cleaning and, the feeding and the most interaction with him, but he's always loved my husband. Leah, however, was definitely a mama's girl, and I didn't work for a lot of years because I've had some issues with depression and anxiety. I've only been back to work part-time for about 4 years now, and that was a huge step for me. Um, and it's been kind of a milestone for me because, I really didn't think I would make it because my anxiety and any of you that live with true depression and anxiety know that you never know how you're going to sleep at night and what you're going to feel like the next day, and it was just scary making an obligation of getting up and trying to go to work. Now I only work, 2 or 3 days a week for like 4 hours. Luckily my job is close, and my work family is absolutely amazing, and they know that the animals are like my priority, and they've been so good about that. But I don't remember where I was going with that, but so really up until, a couple years ago, I was pretty much home all the time. I really hardly ever left. The monkeys were with me in the house. If I would go outside and do stuff, they would go in their outdoor enclosure. Some people let the monkeys run free. We've never lived until now in an area where they could really do that. We lived in, we did back in 2006 through 14 before we lost our property to foreclosure. We had a lot of land then, and then it was different, but back then we just had Isaac, and then Levi was, I think, 2 when we left there. That was a rough year too. Rough several years. Within a short amount of time, my son was in a very horrific car accident, which they said he would never survive, but by God's grace he did. Right before that, my father-in-law took his life. So that was a really hard thing for a long time to get through. And then shortly after we started to overcome some of that, we dealt with the plummet in the economy and our house going into foreclosure. And at that time, my mom and dad were living with us, and I was taking care of my dad full-time, who passed away of Alzheimer's in October that year. And the May before that was when we lost Isaac. And in the midst of all that, we had let a friend of ours come live with us because he had nowhere to go. And I came home from church one day, and he had a heart attack and passed away on the floor of the room that he was staying in. So I feel like from like 2012 until like 2014, 15 was just constant crap going on. And then of course, when we had to move after losing the house, it was devastating because all these laws changed in 2008 with FWC about land and stuff, and that is when the grandfathering thing became confusing, which has led up to this issue that I'm going through with Ezra. But anyway, I'm way off topic because there's so much built up in my mind and my heart that I would love to share and talk about. But my point for today was just to get on and say that, and put out there a little bit about Leah. Leah was just a very unique monkey, and I'm sure everybody has an animal in their life that was their heart animal or special or whatever. I'm not putting any less importance on dogs or cats or reptiles or fish or hamsters or any of that. And some people may laugh, oh, fish or a hamster or a guinea pig, but we have no right to judge or laugh at anyone about their love for an animal, because sometimes the love of that little animal, no matter whether it's scales, feathers, fur, hooves, when you're going through a tough time in life, especially mentally and emotionally, animals can be your only saving grace. And I don't think we have, the right to judge anyone for that, because nobody judges or laughs at people when they're popping pills to take care of anxiety or depression or whatever their ailment is. And to me, a man-made chemical putting in your body and taking care of and easing the pain of something is silly compared to a living, breathing animal that God created that loves us unconditionally. But monkeys are just, and a lot of the primates are a lot different than any other animal. They are so human-like and childlike. I'm not saying that, whenever I say that, you get the animal people, the animal rights people that are like, oh, well, they're not children. You shouldn't dress them up and do this and do that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about technically animals, monkeys, are human-like in a lot of their skills, their anatomy, the way they think about things. They still have their wild instincts, but I guess it's really no way for me to put it into words without somebody experiencing it. And the reason I'm stressing this is because a lot of people are just, amazingly, even some monkey people. So it makes me wonder, I don't care if you've worked around monkeys for 20 or 30 years. If you've never spent a ton of intimate time with them, like seriously watching them and seeing how their little minds work and one-on-one with them and their reactions to different emotions and things like that, then I don't think you truly grasp how much like us they really are. And Leah, like literally from the time I got her, when she was a baby, I didn't like feed her and then put her down, At nighttime was the only time when she went to bed that I would lay her down. And of course, I always had a monitor or something on so I could hear if she cried. But during the day, I would stuff her in my shirt or carry her around in a clothes basket or whatever. She was never out of my sight until she started, crawling and getting into everything. And then it was, I had to kind of monitor how I did it. But that little monkey was always just ecstatic to see me. And every morning she was hanging on this cage when she heard my feet hit the floor, just doing her little hoo hoo hoo, waiting for me to come say good morning to her. And if I didn't come say good morning to her, even before I went to the bathroom, she would get louder and louder and louder. And then during the day when I was here, she would sit there and, and just cry for me. And I'd come in and, every single time I opened this door to come in the cage, she'd run from wherever she was and just jump and wrap her little self around my neck. When I was in here cleaning at night, she was on my shoulder or right there next to me trying to help me clean. At nighttime we had this little game where I would stand on the stepladder because they have like a blanket on top of their cage up top where they have a toy box, and that's where they like to sleep. And so every night I wipe the whole top down and put fresh blankets up there, and they loved the smell, I guess, of the fresh blankets and would come running over and roll on their backs and want me to like blow raspberries and tickle them. And so it's like the last 2 weeks I try to keep things normal for Levi, so I go over and climb up the ladder, and finally he's to where when I put the blankets down, he comes running over and rolls on his back. But my heart just hits the floor because I can visualize her running over, and doing it too, and she's not here. She's not here waiting for me when I come home from work. There's been a couple times when I'm making their food and I call everything cookies. I'm like, I'm making your cookies, and I could swear I hear her, and I guess the point that I'm getting at is that she was such a huge part of my day, every day, all day. And it's hard to adjust to that. It's hard to pull in the driveway and see just little Levi looking out the window and not both of them. It's hard when I come home, now Levi's sitting in the chair and Leah doesn't come. When I play the games at night with him, it's just Levi and not Leah, and he's just starting to do that again because for a while he didn't want to do anything. Yesterday I worked a couple hours, I came home and he was again sitting up here in the window, just curled up with her blanket. He just misses her. So it's kind of like salt in the wound, I mean, we miss her very much. And I know it's going to take time, and some days I'm better than others, but I feel like I just don't know how I'm going to get through it. And I just want to say thank you for your prayers and for caring, for those of you who have, and to those who don't understand, I don't know what to tell you other than I'm sorry. And for the haters, is what I call them, and they haven't always it's not always been like just personally at me, but like TikTok is the worst for that. And all I can think about is that girl, that took her life, that did the fox rescue because of the constant, she had depression issues too, but they were constantly, negative people. And I think it's PETA people is what I think. Because I think you have to either get paid or have to have some kind of motivation to be that ugly. because I just can't imagine God creating the heart of anyone to be that ugly and that nasty for absolutely no reason is beyond me. And there was a girl, I can't remember now, I don't remember the video, but I know my friend Deb posted it on her page, and she is an exotic place. And she touched about, people, why can't you just be kind? And talked about the effect that this has on people, the negativity and then the condemning. And I see it on TikTok. Like, there was videos with Leah and Levi, and people would just be like, they'd write negative stuff like, wow, that's the ugliest rat I've ever seen, or they belong in the dirt, or why would anybody want something so gross, and just things like that. Like, why? If I see a video of something that I'm not into or I don't like, I pass on. I don't take time out of my day to go on there and write some nasty freaking comment. So I guess that's my point. If you have nothing nice to say, then keep your pie hole shut. Move on. And that's why I made that post yesterday with the picture of Leah saying that I was tired of the negativity. And that's where I'm at. From now on, instead of letting it get to me, and I don't know why I do, people are always saying, oh, don't let it get to you, they're, whatever. And I try not to, but I think the part of it is, for one, I'm a huge empath, and two, I overthink everything. Sorry, the bars on my face we're sitting by the window. But the big thing for me is I just can't justify how anyone could be that horrible. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand that. So that bothers me, and I'm having a hard time with it. So the only way that I feel that I can deal with it is that instead of reading into it, is I'm just going to start deleting the comment, and I'm going to start blocking the person. I don't care how nice they are or whatever. Now, there's been a couple of them that have wrote things that I think they just came off wrong, so I'll answer it and go, okay, you're coming off a little odd. What are you asking me? I don't mind answering questions. I've also had a couple people on TikTok that get crappy, and they're like, trying to tell me, they're primatologists or they have degrees and this, that, and that. I'm not going to sit and argue anymore with people either. I may not know everything, but I feel pretty educated enough to, when I go to speak about something with these animals, I don't speak it unless I feel like I have the facts and the experience to back it up. Otherwise, if somebody asks me something, I'm like, you know what, I'm not sure, I'll look into it, or I'll direct them to somebody I think might know better, that kind of thing. I just don't feel like giving somebody false information is the way to go. If I don't know something, then I'll, whatever, or I'm not sure how to answer it. Because I really don't think any of us ever stop learning, because animals never stop teaching us. And especially since their world and our world is constantly changing and we're constantly trying to readapt, it's always going to be a learning process. But this is something I've been passionate about since I was a kid, but really got the hands on and started really researching and reading and digging and keeping notebooks and spending as much intimate time with these guys, as I've been able to for the last 33 years, I guess. The first 15 was these guys, lemurs and big cats were a very big thing for me too. But when I moved here, I really didn't have that opportunity. So, God, that's something I'd love to do more with though. But anyway, I just wanted to get on here and explain a little bit about, obviously, 1,000,001 things. I have notebooks full of things that I've wanted to get on and share about and talk about. Not to be an expert or to be judgmental or whatever people want to take it as, but more or less is just to open up conversations to questions people may have, or questions I may even have. It's all about sharing our experiences and learning and, having some place to go when we have a question or a concern or want to talk about something, not feeling like we can't speak out or ask questions or talk because we're going to be condemned or ridiculed or whatever. That's not how it's supposed to be. And it has really gotten out of hand in that manner. That's why I don't do a lot of groups and stuff anymore on Facebook or whatever. And that's another thing. I found myself getting worried about that and caught up in it, but I could care less about how many likes or how many followers or, I mean, I admit I thought it'd be kind of cool to do something with these guys and the knowledge and information and whatever I have and be able to make a couple bucks, because I know that people that have, you know, a lot of followers or whatever on like Facebook and TikTok can actually bring in a little revenue, and that would be so awesome, you know, for the refuge, especially because we're trying to rebuild. But at the same time, it's not something that I want to get that caught up in, that it's running my life and stressing me out, because the only reason for me is sharing these guys, but also sharing the love of Jesus through these guys, because that is what has saved my life. You know, I always say animals save my life, and in a way they have, but I really think it's been God's love through them is what has done it for me, because without God there would have been no them. And I think he knew that they were my healing from a young age. It was actually horses in the beginning, because I never got to be around these guys. But they just open a lot of doors as far as people's curiosity. And I think in a world right now where their environment is just declining at a high rate of speed, I think learning about them in captivity, and I hate that word sometimes because it's not really what a lot of people think, and that's another thing I'm going to talk about, but not today, is all these people saying stuff in there about how can you have them as a pet, and how can you have them in your house or your home or your family, or they should be in the wild. And those are the clueless ass people, excuse me, shouldn't have said that, very passionate about this too, that have no idea what their wild is really like. I had one lady on TikTok arguing with me, basically calling me an idiot, saying that these guys' lifespan is way longer in the wild than it is in captivity. I don't know what crap she's been reading, but that is absolutely wrong on almost majority of all animals, exotics, wildlife, period. They do not live longer in the wild than they do in captivity. And that's humans' fault, but it is the truth. There might be some very species-specific animals. I've seen some reptiles and a couple other animals that do a little bit better in captivity, I mean in the wild, just because it's very hard to supply their diet and their natural like environment, because they go off like humidity and daylight and certain foods that grow a certain time of the year in the areas they're in, that kind of thing. But majority, that is not the case. So that really is a subject that I have an issue with. And I did want to say one more thing before I go, and that is that when I start getting upset about this stuff and the way people act is when I stop and I watch a couple Charlie Kirk debates, because that man was so passionate about God's love and the truth and what he did. And I am still amazed when I see people say nasty things to me and I get offended by it. I just look at him and the crap that man endured, and the accusations and the death threats and everything, but it never fazed him. I'm sure it bothered him a little bit in the beginning, and I heard him talk on that too, but he just got up every day, prayed, spent time in God's word, and put on the armor and went out there and did with all his heart. And he had people constantly telling him he was wrong, and they had degrees in that area, and they knew this and knew that, and where most people would have been like, oh crap, maybe he didn't. He was just like, no, this is what I know in my heart, this is what I feel, and this is what I'm led to do, and I'm going to do it. And then some people are like, oh yeah, well it got him killed. You know what? He got killed, I hate that word, because God said, okay, well, job well done, it's time to come home. And look what his calling, being called home, did. Revival. I mean, and the bottom line is he passed doing what he loved, serving the God he loved. And I think that we all need to step back sometimes and think about what we're doing and what we're called to do. and not let this world that's going to continue to get worse and continue to get more evil, because that's what God says is going to happen. Bottom line, you know, I know we all want to see things get better and people be nicer and issues get resolved, but it's unfolding, and I just think we have to prepare ourselves. But while we're here, we need to do what we're called to do, regardless of what others around us say, think, or whatever. And I just love him because he's always been an inspiration to me, because of his courage, because of his faith, because of his love for families and morals. And that is something that when I start getting down, I try to read the Word of God every day, because it's the world's best roadmap. But also I like to watch his debates, because when I see people ask questions and I cringe, I see his responses, and it just gives me so much hope and so much courage. And I just think he was an amazing person and left a heck of a legacy behind. And each of us has our own passion, our own calling, and sometimes God calls us to do things that bring us totally out of our comfort zone, and maybe not even using the things that we feel that we're strong, passionate, and talented in. But I do believe if we humble ourselves and we stay in prayer and we stay in the Word and we believe, I do think he'll provide what we need. He'll give us the peace and the strength to do what we need. And I feel like little Leah, I mean, last night was a rough night. I had a lot of visions, you know, about the night that I lost her, like holding her in my arms, and if I would have done this or I would have tried that. And I keep beating myself up, and I keep trying to tell myself I don't know why God allowed it, but if he wanted her to be here, he wouldn't have let her die. And I don't hate him for it, and he's given me undescribable peace at times, and other times I fall apart. But there has been some things that I have seen his hand in because of her loss. And of course the devil's on my shoulder going, oh, well, why did he have to use her? Couldn't he have done something else, you know? And then all of a sudden I start wanting to drift the other way and become angry and resentful and whatever. And then I catch myself and I'm like, no, not today. Not today, mister. No more stronghold in my life, because I know anytime he starts getting into my head is when my mind goes off course, and that's when my life just falls apart, and I don't need that right now. So anyway, today is my mom's birthday. She has dementia, and so I wanted to get on here and just make a quick video. I was going to do a live, but I wasn't sure if I'd be able to hold it together, so I just felt better about making a video and then posting it. I do have some plans on starting a thing. I don't really want to know what to call it. Maybe doing live. I don't know. I just don't like being in the spotlight, and I have a hard time just being fluent in my talking, depending on what day it is. So I may have to be one of those, go back to the things of writing stuff down and just reading, because my mind just goes crazy. But I wanted to get on here, share a little bit of my thoughts. I went far longer and far beyond what I wanted to, really. But I gotta go, and this is gonna be the hard part, leaving him, but I gotta go spend some time with my mother. She's dementia, and so every moment with her is cherished, and you never know what day, what she's gonna be like one day to the next. So that's hard too. It's a horrible disease. That and cancer are two things that I absolutely just hate with all my heart. So I just wanted to say I hope everybody has a good week. Thank you for your love, your support, your prayers, your cares. Even though I can't comment on every little thing that somebody says or whatever, I've tried to respond to all the messages, because I know what it's like to have a busy, crazy life and to take your time out of your day to sit down and physically reach out to someone. And I really do appreciate it from the heart. And that's another reason I guess I never really wanted to get, too crazy on social media, because I never want to get to the point where the people that care never feel like they're cared about, if that makes sense. So he does not know personal space. So, oh, there's the car, the UPS guy. Get your butt out of my face. So, anyway, say bye, bub. Say bye. Them tufts are really something. But sending love and prayers to everybody, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we'll keep you updated. We're working on some stuff this week with the attorney about Ezra, among other things, but we got to do some more fundraising because this last couple of years has depleted our account with vet bills and attorney fees, and now we're trying to get materials to get this outside enclosure that was supposed to be these guys, but we're going to make it so it divides and can be used for another, like if we get another intake, and they have to be separated. And then eventually once that's done, then we hope to build some more, but we're still trying to finish the house too, so it's just been one thing after another, and then we have things like this happen with Leah, and then you just become crippled, and you literally just can't do anything for weeks on end because you're just in a funk. So I'm trying to get my groove back. So love you guys, praying for you, and just remember all things are possible with God.